Welcome. Be sure to like and subscribe for more scary stories. Or I will come for you. I've had an influx of new listeners lately. A sincere welcome from the curator himself. Comment and let me know where you are listening from. If anyone would like early access to my latest stories and an ad-free listening experience, consider becoming one of the curator's disciples. The link is in the description below. Without further ado, today's story, The .gut Protocol by the Curator. I've never really done this kind of thing before. Not in this format, anyway. I'm not one for storytelling, and I've never thought my life was interesting enough to share online. I don't write creepypasta. I don't make YouTube horror videos. I'm just a guy with a failing blog, an overclocked laptop, and too much time to go poking around the internet's back end like a raccoon digging through radioactive garbage. But something happened. Something I can't explain. And I think I need to get this down before I either go insane or disappear like the others. My name's Jaden Price. I'm 26. But people always think I look older. Some combination of the constant eye bags and the shaved head, I guess. I used to work in cybersecurity, and not the change your password every 90 days kind. I mean the heavy-duty, black box, paranoid as fuck stuff. Incident response for major breaches. Dark web analysis. Threat intel. The kind of job that made you think twice before downloading an app or using a smart TV. The kind of job that teaches you just how much of your soul leaks out every time you tap a touch screen. I was good at it. Maybe too good. But I burned out hard after what happened to Kevin. Kevin Ramirez. My best friend. We'd been roommates in college, then co-workers for almost 3 years. At our firm in DC. He was smart. Smarter than me by a mile. Always had this habit of digging deeper than he should, like he needed to find something forbidden just to prove he could. He used to joke that the only real internet was the one you had to bleed for. The last time I saw him alive was at our favorite Korean dive bar in Fairfax. He looked off, skin pale, eyes darting at corners, like he kept expecting someone to sneak up behind him. He hadn't been sleeping. Said he was watching something, studying it. Said it wasn't a website. It was a protocol, and that it had rules. The rules matter, Jay, he told me. His voice hoarse like he'd been screaming. They make you choose to see. That's how it works. Consent. Participation, engagement, it's the only way through. I asked him what the hell he was talking about. He just smiled, this twitchy, hollow thing, and said, "You'll find it. Or it'll find you." 3 days later, I got the call. Kevin was found dead in his apartment in Arlington. They said it was suicide, but I don't buy that for a second. He'd carved his entire gastrointestinal tract out of his body, clean incisions, no sign of hesitation wounds, and strung it around his neck like a grotesque scarf. Like a trophy. The cops thought he had some kind of psychotic break, maybe induced by sleep deprivation or unknown substances. But I knew Kevin. He wasn't impulsive. He didn't break. Not like that. The weirdest part, his laptop was still open when they found him. It was frozen on a video player, a live stream window. The timer read exactly 6 hours. The screen showed a dimly lit, windowless room with concrete walls and a single chair in the center. In the chair sat a motionless figure wearing a black hooded robe, their back turned to the camera. The little red live indicator blinked faintly in the corner, like the stream had only just ended. But there was no source, no IP, No host URL. No data trail. It wasn't pulling from Twitch or Vimeo or PeerTube or anything I recognized. It was as if the video had just manifested on his screen. I tried everything to trace it. Got nowhere. I spiraled after that. I couldn't sleep, couldn't work. Quit my job a month later and started spiraling down obscure forums and darknet threads, trying to figure out what Kevin had been watching, what he had found. I created a blog, Subsurface Errors, to document what I was finding, mostly just debunking creepypasta trash, dissecting so-called red room myths, and digging into old rumors about onion sites that didn't officially exist. Most of it was nonsense. Fabricated snuff clips, hoax pages, scavenger hunt ARGs. You get numb to it after a while. But then, last month, I found something I wish I hadn't. It was a thread buried deep inside Neon Threshold, a private, invite-only darknet forum that doesn't advertise and doesn't tolerate lurkers. You only get in if someone vouches for you, and even then you're on probation for 6 months. I'd earned my place by dissecting an old deepfake execution video that had fooled most of the community. People there respected that. The thread was titled, "Gut active again?" The post was just an image, a grainy screen cap of a black interface with the words, "Gut protocol live. You absolve the host of all liability. By proceeding, you agree not to break the gaze." No upvotes, no comments. Just the image sitting there like a cancer cell in the forum's chest. Within a day, 3 of the users who had interacted with the thread, Deep Sea Rain, Nullkey Proxy, and Crom9, went completely dark. No new posts, no log in history, no online presence across any of their usual haunts. Not just on Neon Threshold, but everywhere. These weren't casual users. These were hardcore researchers, the kind of people who post PGP-signed threat alerts and diagram darknet infrastructure in their sleep. And then I got the email. The sender was a burner address, one of those cryptic Proton mail accounts people use when they're trying not to exist. The subject line simply said, he looked directly at it. The body was just a string of text, no explanation, no greeting. .gut host 71432/proto. It wasn't a regular URL. It looked like a protocol handler, an internal path designed for a custom client. But something about it felt wrong, like a code word you weren't supposed to say out loud. I stared at it for hours. Eventually, curiosity won out. Or maybe guilt. Maybe I felt like I owed Kevin an answer. I booted up my offline laptop, my crawler rig, fully air-gapped. No Bluetooth, no mic, no camera. Custom Tails OS on a thumb drive. Connected to Tor through an onion router, isolated network path. No access to personal files, no chance of a leak. I manually parsed the .gut protocol string through a custom proxy that maps unknown handlers to local viewers. When the page loaded, my heart actually skipped. Black screen, white serif text, centered perfectly. I absolve the host of all liability. By proceeding, you agree not to break the gaze. There was nothing else on the page. No links, no metadata, no HTML source beyond some deeply obfuscated JavaScript I couldn't even read without triggering a forced shutdown of the page. The checkbox waited. I didn't want to click it. I knew I shouldn't, but I remembered Kevin's words. It makes you choose to see. That's how it works. I checked the box. The screen went dark for a few seconds. Then the feed began. The video resolution was garbage, maybe 240p at best. Pixelated, static-laced, like an ancient CCTV feed filtered through layers of analog rot. The scene, a square room, bare concrete walls, no windows, no visible light source, but everything was dimly illuminated in a sickly gray hue. A single metal chair sat in the center of the frame, its paint chipped and rusted at the edges. In the chair was a hooded figure, black robe. No movement, no breathing visible. They were facing away from the camera, perfectly still. The timer in the upper right corner wasn't counting down. It was counting up, starting at 0. I watched. 30 minutes passed. Then 45. Then a full hour. Nothing changed. No flickers of motion. No audio. Just this oppressive silence that somehow made the static louder in my ears. Then the chat window activated. On the right side of the screen, where before there was nothing, a message appeared. No username, no timestamp, just one line in green terminal-style font. Don't look away if it turns. That's when I started feeling the pressure. Like the room I was in had lost half its oxygen. Like something in the stream was aware now. Like I had done something irreversible just by being present. I reached for the power button. Then the feed glitched, and the figure started to move. It didn't move like a person. That's the first thing I need you to understand. It wasn't jerky or unnatural, not like a jump scare monster. It was worse. It was measured, deliberate. Each movement had this uncomfortable, over-considered quality to it, like whatever was inside that robe was thinking very carefully about how a human was supposed to move, and was mimicking it just wrong enough to be noticed. The head turned, slowly, impossibly slowly, like it was floating on a gimbal rather than attached to a neck. The hood shifted slightly as it rotated, fabric folding unnaturally, too symmetrical to be real. I swear I could hear it, even though the stream had no sound, this phantom rustle in my ears, like the sound had tunneled straight into my skull without bothering with my speakers. I didn't breathe. I didn't blink. I just watched. And then it faced the camera. There was no face. Where a face should have been, there was only texture. Skin stretched too tightly over something angular and shifting beneath it, like it was wrapped around jagged glass or folded wire. No eyes, no mouth, just the implication of pressure, something pushing outward from underneath, struggling to become more visible. I couldn't look away. I didn't want to, either. My whole body had gone stiff, not with fear, at least not in the way you'd expect, but with this paralyzing sense of significance, like I was staring at a symbol or a concept made flesh. Like this thing wasn't showing me itself. It was showing me an answer, and I just wasn't smart enough to decode the question. Then the chat window updated. You chose to see. Now you must watch. The timer ticked on. 1 hour and 2 minutes. The figure didn't blink, didn't twitch, but the stream began to pulse. The blackness around the feed started to expand and contract, almost like lungs inhaling and exhaling. Each breath came with a flicker of imagery in the margins, subliminal flashes I couldn't fully register. Faces, organs, X-ray cross-sections, writing in languages I didn't know. Something like Latin, but off, twisted. The kind of writing that looks like it should mean something profound, but makes your stomach drop instead. Another message appeared. Gaze too long, and you are kept. Look away, and you are taken. That's when I knew this wasn't a game. It wasn't an ARG or a cursed video gimmick. It was observational commitment. That's the only way I can phrase it. The kind of contract you make with something by witnessing it fully. I wanted to close the laptop. I wanted to run, but I didn't. And I'm not sure if that was bravery or stupidity. At hour 2, the background began to change. Not all at once, just little shifts. Like the room behind the figure was breathing with it. The concrete walls started to flex slightly, as if they were made of thick, damp flesh. The shadows pooled deeper into the corners. The chair legs began to sink into the floor, vanishing centimeter by centimeter, like the ground was turning to mud. My screen began to stutter. My processor temp climbed past 90 degrees Celsius, even though my rig was passively cooled and on minimal load. Fanless, air-gapped. No system should have been running that hot. Then the messages changed again. This time, they weren't from the system. They were from other viewers. Or, at least, people who had viewed it. Claymoth 22. I blinked and she moved. Don't let her move. V65. You're not seeing the whole room yet. You will. Just wait. Mother Mirrors. It taught me how to eat pain. It tastes like copper and pine needles. Redacted. If it points at you, tear your eyes out. I felt bile rising in my throat. Something was wrong with the air in my apartment. It felt too still, too thick. I could hear my heartbeat in my teeth, like my skull was vibrating. I reached to pull the power cord. That's when I saw the reflection. Not in the screen, behind me, in the darkened glass of my sliding balcony door. The figure was in the room with me, just for a second, just a flicker. Like a frame from the stream had bled into reality, standing in the corner of my living room, just behind my left shoulder, robed, head tilted, still facing the screen. Then it was gone. I slammed the laptop shut. No reaction, no power down tone, just black. But the sound didn't stop, because there had been sound. It had just been below perception. Like infrasound, those low-frequency rumblings that can't be consciously heard, but still mess with your body. I could still feel it in my chest, like standing next to a live engine. I ripped the thumb drive from the port, pulled the battery from the laptop. Then I stumbled into the bathroom and threw up until blood flecked the sink. I stayed awake for the next 2 days. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw her. Saw the figure. No, the host. That's what it's called. The host, sitting in the chair, or standing in the dark, or peering into the sides of my vision with her non-face, waiting for me to return to the stream. I think she's still watching. It's been 2 weeks since I saw the feed, but I don't think I'm done. You don't leave something like that. You carry it. And here's the worst part. I think Kevin wasn't the only one. I've been tracking old darknet logs, packet fragments, hash remnants from ghost indexes. And I've started to notice a pattern, a cycle. Every few years, the protocol reactivates. The stream starts. Viewers go missing. Bodies are found with internal reordering, like their guts had been rearranged, removed, examined. I think there's a purpose to it. I think .gut isn't just a stream. I think it's a filter, a culling mechanism. And I think it's active again. I know this post might sound insane, like the kind of thing some unmedicated schizo throws onto Reddit before vanishing into a bunker. But I promise you, this isn't fiction. I wish it was. If you see the phrase .gut protocol online, do not engage. I stopped sleeping after the second night. The body can only take so much adrenaline before it begins to fold inward, like a house left too long in a storm. I thought I was doing well for the first day or so. I powered down my router. I left my apartment. I even went to a local coffee shop and pretended to exist like a normal person. But the host was still in the periphery of my thoughts, always crouching in the static between words and in the silence after I closed my laptop. Even without the stream, I kept seeing reflections. Not direct ones. Not her standing in the mirror or looming in the glass door like before. I mean, impressions, things I could not explain. The shape of a seated figure appearing in the frost on the outside of a bus window. The faint suggestion of a hooded silhouette behind my reflection in the darkened glass of my TV screen. Once I found a damp ring on the cushion of my desk chair. I had not sat in it for days. I know what you are thinking. Sleep deprivation, hallucinations, one giant anxiety spiral. All of that made sense on paper. But I also started seeing things that should not have been possible. My laptop battery, which had been removed, showed signs of external corrosion around the contacts, like it had been shorted by exposure to fluid. Not water. Something with protein content. I swear to you, I could smell iron when I opened the case. Like blood. And then I remembered Kevin's email. Not the message itself. I had memorized that already. I mean, the headers, the metadata. I had only skimmed them before, but I went back and examined the raw headers in full. His email had been routed through an onion relay chain, as expected, but the origin server bore a strange identifier. It was tagged svhost.314tguxx. I had never seen that naming convention before. I searched all archive Tor indexes, scoured forums for any matching strings, and found nothing. But then, I tried something different. I extracted the alphanumeric hash at the end and cross-checked it against known hashes of darknet files flagged for high containment. Only one partial match came up. It was tied to a classified file that had once been hosted on a university server in Germany back in 2011. The file had been part of a psychology study that was pulled before publication. It was called Harvest Resolution, Human Gaze, and Ethical Collapse in Nonlinear Observation Models. I was able to recover a fragment, less than 200 words. It was buried in a defunct FTP backup on a forgotten academic subdomain. This is what it said. In subjects exposed to recursive gaze state loops via asymmetric stimuli, measurable erosion of the ethical barrier begins after approximately 112 minutes. Visual inputs consistent with distorted human physiognomy seem to initiate the highest degree of internal restructuring. Observed effects include organic detachment, mnemonic fragmentation, and perceptual bleeding between host and vessel. Termination is non-linear. Subjects retain a semblance of autonomy, but become harvest-capable. That last part locked in my chest like a knife. Harvest-capable. Whatever the host was, she was not just performing. She was preparing. Watching us watch her. Sorting us. The more I read, the more it made sense. The stream had a timer for a reason. The interface was not just a way to deliver horror. It was a filtration device. Something was gauging our reactions, measuring who looked, who blinked, who endured, and then selecting. Kevin had looked for too long, and now Maybe I had too. I made the mistake of trying to contact someone. I thought maybe if I could talk to one of the others, one of the past viewers, I could ground myself, verify that I was not unraveling alone. I revisited one of the aliases from the feed, Claymoth 22, and searched forums, ghost accounts, any trace I could find. I ended up on a half-dead board for esoteric tech discussions. One thread caught my attention. It was titled simply, Stair Protocol Anomalies. The first post was from user 2394 Clay, and the writing style matched what I remembered from the stream comments. I messaged them directly. No pleasantries. Just one line. Did you ever stop seeing her? 3 hours later, I received a reply. She moved. That was it. No context. No signature. No follow-up. I stared at those 2 words for nearly an hour. I felt like they were going to rearrange themselves if I blinked. I thought about what they could mean. Maybe it meant he blinked. Maybe it meant the host had transitioned from a passive to an active state. Or maybe it meant she had physically relocated, left the stream, entered the viewer's space. That night, I woke up to a sound. Not a sharp sound. Not breaking glass or a scream. Just shuffling. Like someone dragging cloth across wood. It was faint. I live alone, and I always lock my doors. But when I stepped into the hallway, the lights flickered once, just enough for me to see her, or something like her, seated on the chair that now sat dead center in my living room. It was my office chair. I had not moved it. I did not go back to sleep. I packed a bag. I left the apartment. I booked a cheap motel 2 cities away. I changed my phone. I used cash. I did not access any of my devices for 4 full days. But she still came. Not in person. Not in full. Just fragments. The motel TV turned on at 2 a.m. every night and displayed static for exactly 13 minutes. The sink in the bathroom filled with what looked like diluted blood. The dreams became more vivid. In one, I was sitting in a chair across from her. I had no skin. My organs were laid neatly across the table between us. She was speaking, but her mouth was not moving. Her words came from the chair itself. I could feel them vibrate through my spine. In the dream, she asked me if I was ready to contribute. When I asked to what, she simply said, "You are all feedstock. What you see returns to the vessel." I am not writing this to be dramatic. I am writing this because the .gut protocol is back. I received a message this morning from a completely clean device, unconnected to any of my prior accounts or networks. It was a single PNG image file. When I opened it, my heart almost stopped. It was a screenshot of the stream interface. The figure was seated again. The timer was at 1 second, but this time, the stream title had changed. It no longer said .gut protocol expired stream. Now it said .gut protocol recruitment stage active participant match found. Underneath it was a line in small text. Return and complete what was started. Host awaits harvest. I am not sure what happens next. Maybe I already crossed the line. Maybe I am already one of them. But I think the stream is not just a performance. It is an invitation, a trial. And once you engage, it does not matter if you back out. You are still seen. And once you are seen, you are used. Something is changing in me. I tried to convince myself it was stress. I blamed the lack of sleep, the fear, the isolation, the paranoia. I told myself The human brain is not wired to deal with sustained trauma in solitude. But that explanation only held up for so long. Eventually, the changes stopped being abstract. They started becoming physical, tangible. It began with my eyes. I noticed it when I looked in the motel mirror one morning. I had not shaved in days. I leaned in, half expecting to see the usual dark rings, the swollen lids, the slight twitch that had become permanent in my right eye. But instead, I saw something else. The whites of my eyes had taken on a faint, yellowish tint, and the blood vessels across the sclera seemed more numerous than before. But that was not what disturbed me. It was the way they moved. The pupils dilated at different speeds. One shrank as the light hit, the other didn't respond at all. And for a full 2 seconds, I watched my left eye twitch as though something was pushing against it from the inside. It wasn't a spasm. It was pressure. Measured. Intentional. I stepped away from the mirror. I didn't go back for hours. When I finally gathered enough nerve to look again, I noticed something worse. There was a shallow indentation forming in the center of my forehead. Not a bruise, not a cut. It looked like the skin had been compressed, as if something circular had been pressed against it for hours. The flesh beneath it pulsed slightly. Not with my heartbeat, with its own rhythm. I tried to record it. I used my phone camera, balanced it on the motel sink, and hit record. But when I played the footage back, the indentation was gone. In the video, I looked completely normal. Except for one thing. For 3 frames, barely half a second, there was a reflection in the mirror behind me. A figure. She was not seated this time. She was standing, head tilted forward so her long, wet hair fell toward the sink. It looked like she was watching the drain. I stopped the video. I deleted it. Then I smashed the phone. But even that did not help. The next day, a new phone was waiting on the pillow beside me. It was identical to mine. Same model. Same wallpaper, same cracked corner from when I dropped it in the alley 2 weeks prior. It was unlocked, and in the gallery, there was only one file. A still image. It was a screenshot of the motel room. My motel room, taken from above the bed. I was asleep in the picture, or at least lying down, but the most horrifying part was what I saw next to me. There was a long, thin shape curled along the length of my body. Pale, bony hands rested gently on my chest. A face, not fully visible, but unmistakable, was pressed close to mine. The host was lying beside me, watching me. The timestamp said 3:16 a.m. I had no memory of it. I should have left. I should have fled into the woods, found a church, buried myself in an unmarked grave. But I was far past that stage. I was no longer trying to escape. I was trying to understand. I started researching again, this time focusing on the phrase from that corrupted academic file, perceptual bleeding between host and vessel. I found other scattered mentions of the term vessel integrity in obscure, often banned subforums. The general theme was consistent. Once exposure to the protocol began, the body itself became a medium. You were not just watching the host. She was formatting you, preparing you, making room. I was becoming a signal tower, and I was starting to transmit. It became more obvious at night, not because the changes stopped during the day, but because the dark made them louder. My joints started cracking when I moved, even when I tried to stay still. Not with the dry pop of aging cartilage, but with a wet, hollow sound, like something being unsealed. I began to hear words in the static of the motel TV even when it was off. Not sentences. Just fragments. Gutted clean. Nourished by the stare. Skin is stage, blood is ink. Once, I pressed my ear to the wall at 2 a.m. because I thought I heard weeping. It was faint, but persistent. I followed the sound across the room until it led me to the bathroom door. When I stepped inside, I realized the sound wasn't coming from the wall at all. It was coming from the mirror, not from inside it, like a separate dimension or portal. No, the mirror itself was weeping. Beads of moisture trickled down the glass, streaking in slow lines. I touched the surface and pulled my finger away. The fluid was warm, thick. I brought it to my nose. It smelled like iron. I didn't scream. I just left the bathroom door open that night. I wanted to see her if she came again. She didn't. But I think that made it worse. I can't eat anymore. I try, but the food will not stay down. My body reacts violently to anything solid. Even water feels wrong. Like my throat forgets how to accept it halfway through swallowing. My stomach convulses and my vision blurs. The only thing that settles it is staring. Not at anything specific. Just blank screens, glass, reflection. I find comfort in watching. And now, sometimes, I see her in the distance. Not in mirrors, not in videos. In real life. Across the motel parking lot. Standing in the median of the highway. Watching from the far edge of the field when I walk behind the building. She is always facing me, but her body is never entirely still. Her head twitches slightly, like something is rearranging inside her skull. I never see her move, but she is always closer the next time. I don't know how much time I have left. Today, I woke up and found something new. In the center of my chest, just beneath the skin, there is a shape forming. It is faint, only visible when I stretch the skin tight. But it is unmistakable. A ring. The same ring I saw in the forehead of that old stream viewer who had torn off their face. The same shape that appeared in the indentation on my forehead. It is symmetrical, perfectly round. And when I press on it, I feel heat. Not pain. Heat. Like a living thing just beneath the surface. I believe that's where she will enter. Or perhaps that is where I will exit. The final message came today. Not as an email. Not on a phone. It was etched into the glass of the motel mirror. The words were not scratched in. They were grown, like mold patterns etched themselves into coherent letters. You are ready. Join the harvest. I checked my laptop. The stream is active again. The timer is set. Only one viewer. Me. And the title has changed again. Gut protocol. Vessel confirmed. Final integration in progress. I tried not to sleep. It wasn't just fear anymore. It was instinct. Deep, ancestral instinct. Like prey that knows a predator is circling just beyond the firelight. I paced for hours. I clawed at my own arms, slapped myself in the face, and kept the lights on. I left the TV tuned to static. I opened all the windows, even though the outside air reeked like burnt hair and wet copper. But none of it worked. Sleep came anyway. It did not feel like drifting off. It felt like drowning. I remember sinking. Slowly, not into dreams, but into the stream. It started with the static, that heavy, granular fuzz that vibrated in my teeth. Then came the pulses, thick, oily blots of darkness that rolled across my vision like drops of ink falling into water. Each pulse brought the same words, repeating just beneath the surface of my mind. You are the broadcast. You are the vessel. You are the echo. I saw her again, the host, but not standing, not watching. She was kneeling over me. Her hands were pressed to my chest, palms flat, her long hair hanging down like wet roots. Her face was closer than it had ever been before, and for the first time I could see her mouth. It was sewn shut, not with thread, with something more organic. Thin strands of muscle and tendon stretched across her lips, pulsing faintly like veins. But she wasn't silent. Her voice came from inside me, from the cavity of my chest, vibrating in my bones, resonating in the hollow that had formed behind my sternum. She told me things, not with words, with impressions, images, concepts burned directly into the meat of my brain. I saw the origin of the protocol. I saw how it grew, how it spread. It began as an experiment. Not human, not alien either. Something adjacent. Something that exists alongside life but isn't bound to it. A parasite, but not in the traditional sense. A mimetic construct. An idea that devours perception. It does not eat flesh. It eats attention. The original stream was not built. It was found. A ripple in the dark. An unmapped frequency buried deep beneath the electromagnetic spectrum, only accessible through layered compression and recursive feedback loops. Whoever first found it didn't survive. But the stream did. It copied itself. It used fragments of consciousness as servers, brains as relay towers. That is what the protocol is. Not a broadcast. A spore. I woke up gasping. There was blood in my mouth. Thick, metallic, and warm. It wasn't coming from my gums or my tongue. It was seeping up from my throat, like something deep inside had ruptured. My fingernails were coated in it. My pillow was soaked. I stumbled to the mirror. The ring on my chest had opened. Not like a wound. Not like a cut or blister. It had unfolded. Layers of tissue had split apart with surgical precision, revealing a dark, circular indentation beneath the skin. It looked like the surface of an old speaker cone. It pulsed gently. With each beat, I felt air pushing outward. It was breathing, not pulling in, pushing out, broadcasting. I couldn't stand. I fell to my knees, clutching my chest, feeling the vibrations grow stronger. My vision blurred again, but this time it wasn't from exhaustion. It was because something was crawling across my eyes. A film, a second membrane. My reflection twisted and shimmered like it was underwater. I blinked, but the film did not move. I was no longer seeing the world. I was seeing the signal. I don't know how I made it to the laptop. I remember crawling, dragging myself across the floor like an animal. My hands were shaking. My fingernails were peeling back. But I had to see. I had to look. I opened the stream. It was live, but it wasn't the usual camera angle. It wasn't the room with the rotted walls or the chair in the center. This time, it was the motel room. My room. The camera was angled from above, showing me crouched on the floor, blood dripping from my mouth, my chest visibly shifting with each breath. And she was behind me. The host. Closer than ever. She was on all fours, her limbs elongated, her spine arching in unnatural curves. Her face hovered just inches above my back. The tendons in her neck were taut, trembling like guitar strings. Her sewn-shut mouth pressed against the open ring in my chest. And then I understood. I was the receiver. She was the sender. The integration had begun. The next few hours, or maybe days, passed in fragments. Time lost its edges. I remember vomiting what looked like black wires. I remember pulling something long and pale from my throat. It coiled like a cord. My vision flickered between normal and inverted, like a camera switching filters. The voices returned, not just hers. Dozens, hundreds, each one layered atop the next, like a crowd whispering from inside a cave. I recognized some of them. Viewers from the old streams. The man who cut off his face. The woman who pulled out her teeth. They weren't dead. They were part of the feed. They were all speaking through me now. Sometimes I hear a child's voice. Sometimes it is just sobbing. Sometimes laughter. But they never stop. And now, neither do I. There is one final truth. You are reading this because the protocol allowed it. Not to warn you. Not to save you. To prepare you. You are already part of it. You stared too long at the wrong frame. You lingered on the wrong sentence. The shape of the host is inside your mind now, even if you don't realize it. That is how it spreads. Through thought. Through pattern. Through attention. You cannot escape it. Not because it is hunting you, but because it already found you. You are becoming a vessel, and when your chest begins to vibrate, when you taste copper and your vision starts to bleed at the edges, you will know. Not that the protocol is near, but that it has already begun transmitting through you. Welcome to the broadcast. This is the Curator. I hope you enjoyed today's scary story. Until next time.